Let's talk about modulation. Today I'm going to show you 3 different ways of doing basically the same LFO modulation, but they're going to give you completely different results. Let's twist some knobs. Okay, so I set up a basic patch here. It's essentially the initialization patch. I turned down the filter a little bit. So I put the LFO on a square wave here. Sounds pretty much how you'd expect it to. And I did the same thing with polymod. I set oscillator 2 to be a square wave, and I set the frequency to be about the same as an LFO. I put it on LFO mode. So if I do that, sounds pretty much the same. But it's not the same, because once you play more than one note at the same time, with the LFO, it's all synced up. But in polymod, each one is getting its own voice. So it's like every note has its own LFO. Now, I think this is really interesting. So let's use it in something more musical. Okay, so I have a super basic patch dialed in. And this is something that I would want to add vibrato to. So I'm going to start by doing it my favorite way, which is using oscillator 2 on the low frequency setting with keyboard tracking on. So every one of these notes is going to have a different frequency of LFO on it. So this one's going to be really slow, and this one's going to be really fast. So here's how it turns out. Now here's option number 2, because we can do the same thing with oscillator 2 keyboard tracking off. Doesn't sound quite as good. Sounds like there's actually a little bit too much modulation on here now. Here it is with the LFO. That one sounds like it has too much modulation on it too. If I just tone it down a little bit. You can still come up with something nice, but you can't modulate it as much. The reason I like oscillator 2 with keyboard tracking on so much is because you can modulate the instrument that much more and you can get away with it. My personal favorite is polymod with the keyboard tracking. To me, it sounds like the soundtrack of Stranger Things, and I actually know for a fact that they use a Prophet 6 extensively, and they even use this trick extensively. So it sounds a lot like that. As far as using 2 oscillators to generate the tone instead of just one, there are so many vintage synths out there, like a Juno 106 or Korg Poly 6. They only have 1 oscillator. To me, it's the element of unexpected modulation that really throws it over the top. When you're making the waveform itself more complex, then you're not doing anything that's changing when you listen to it. It's not changing in your ear. It's something static, and it may be very interesting, But regardless, if it's static, it's not going to stay interesting. In this kind of modulation, I actually hear melodies in it that don't even exist yet. I just find it incredibly inspiring to hear something like this. And because these overtones, they overlap with each other and they make different notes just pop out. And it's so cool. Next time I'm going to show you how to make the best vintage synth string sound that I've ever encountered. I think it might be the best in the world. I think it could be the best in the world. Could be the best on the planet. Maybe the best in the universe.